this. And
Awesome.
good to see everyone today. Welcome back to AI Insiders and our first edition post Labor Day. So good to see a lot of the community coming back together, and hope for those of you who are traveling that all went smoothly, and that you've been avoiding or dealing with COVID and the various plagues that seem to be going around. So hope everyone's in good health too. We are back today with Peter Kraus from Relify. And Peter, great to have you here.
Thanks for inviting us. And it's an exciting group here. I was looking through your archives of previous presenters, and it's really an impressive list and interesting topics you've been covering here.
Well, and a lot of them come from the community. We've had a number of community members like Kate Cook and Brooks Marsh, who came up, like, I met on calls like this, and so always just happy to learn from so many of the folks here. And Jay-Z, who asked so many of the questions here, invited her yesterday to go and find her own time on the stage. So yeah, and thank you, Vanessa Camones, for making the introduction to Peter. Vanessa's past speaker, and someone I've had the pleasure of collaborating with for however many years now, and she's very actively working on setting up the AI Marketers Guild Insiders live event for Q1, a tentpole event that we're planning. So Vanessa, thanks for this, and Peter, it'd be great to hear some thoughts on content marketing and SEO and on things you care to share today. And just for those who are new here, because I think we do have a number of new faces, these are very conversational calls, so feel free to come in and in the comments, raise hands if you need to shout something out. Then we probably won't hold it against you, but whether on camera or off, love to have your input here. So yeah.
I'm glad to hear it's conversational, because I'm coming with a lot of questions here.
Good. This is the right group for it.
So I think our topic for the day was measuring the value of content marketing. And I don't know about you all, but I think that AI is completely reframing how we think about content and what its value is. So, but anyway, thanks for the invitation. Glad to be here. I'm Peter Kraus, CEO of Relify, and I am based in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I don't know if you can see behind me. It's a nice sunny day here. And also, we have offices in Los Angeles and in Cologne, Germany. Dan Boberg has joined us from our LA office there. He's our GM of the US business. And you know, we've been going at this since before AI was you know, on the tip of everybody's tongue. So the venture is about 4 years old, and the reason that we're based out of Germany is we actually brought this process here from Germany and set up the company. But anyway, we all understand that the potential of AI to generate really amazing content for our unique enterprise endeavors. But the problem is, as Gartner is saying these days, 90% of published content is irrelevant. And even with Gen AI helping teams produce more faster. In fact, they're predicting that by 2026, 80% of creative teams are going to be tasked with seeking differentiated results from AI. And that'll actually increase the cost of producing content. So, you know, it's often counterintuitive, you know, when we're going through one of these technology waves. So our point of view at Relify is that we actually need to use AI to generate content strategies to meet this demand of generating differentiated content. And so my short commercial here is that we built a platform that automatically generates hyper accurate subject matter expert AIs models from relevant market data and company data. And these AIs act as like an AI agent that's joining your team to identify the best topics and all the related natural language questions, help measure how well you're answering those questions, and to produce more relevant content and really curate your content, which means you're winning in the AI age. The more precise it is, then the more traction you'll get across the board. So that's with the commercial over. I've got a couple of just intro thoughts here to share, and maybe this strikes a chord, but kind of what I'm hearing as we're out selling and pitching and learning is, first of all, in the age of AI, there's more content than ever, right? It's just expanding exponentially. And so what it means for marketers, for us, is that we have to work harder than ever before. It hasn't gotten easier with AI, right? It's kind of like when email first came out, it was supposed to do wonders for us, and in some respects, it made us work harder. The other thing that's just patently true, I think we probably all experience this, is that search is shifting to AI. And the implication, of course, is that it'll reduce the site traffic we're used to, or the way we're used to measuring inbound, which then directly means we have to increase our targeting efforts. Targeting is more essential than ever, which leads to the third point, is personalization used to be a nice to have, and now it's a must have. So everything we do has to be focused on targeting, personalization, relevance, which is kind of the reason for our brand name. And again, just reinforcing the need for urgency here. 50% of content is predicted to shift to search generative experiences by in the next couple of years, basically. And we saw that last year with 9.5% a year-over-year decline in organic search traffic, presumably because of AI. So what does this mean, and how do we increase content value? Well, to adapt for generative AI, our point of view is that you got to make sure you're covering all the relevant topics for your business with your content, both your sales and your marketing content, and making sure that you're answering those natural language queries precisely. And then you got to focus on content and hygiene, right? So you got to use intelligence, human and machine intelligence, to really deal with the content debt that a lot of companies have built up, not knowing what's out there. Because remember, AI is reading everything that's out there. And then, of course, that means you're in a better position to publish high quality content and distribute it broadly. Content debt is something that we see quite often here. And again, this is my point of view after a couple of years of doing this now, that content fails in companies. It doesn't achieve the value we expect it to, because there's not a good strategy in place. There's poor strategy, or it's changing over time, and then not carried out because there are knowledge gaps, or there's an incomplete process, so that strategy is not encapsulated and shared with the creative team. And also with generative AI, there's quite often not really guidelines around how to use it. Multiple models, multiple tools in motion that are doing different things to the content strategy.
Well,
So,
yeah, and can I just ask for a sec, like,
yeah.
with this in the slide before, it's like, and it kind of ties into incomplete process here, but how much of it is more of like just the intention of like trying to save costs, cut corners? It's like, oh, you can create a lot more content with AI. Like, should you, right? And so I was like, oh, this is easy. Let's just do more of it, right? Like,
Right. I think that was the default. Again, this is from our perception of working with accounts over the last 18 months to 2-year time frame since ChatGPT rocked the world. It's like, well, let's try. Maybe this is a land grab, and we'll just produce more content and publish it and get it out there and see what happens. And in fact, what has happened is it hasn't really solved the relevancy problem. Chris, you get your hand raised.
Yeah, just a comment on that. It feels to me that a lot of people are using AI to produce a lot of content originally. It was in large part driven because they were focused in on SEO. or like I've worked with a consultant previously who was bragging about that, and it was the
Mhm.
world where SEO still dominated. But your earlier point about the shift from general search using Google over to using ChatGPT, it completely changes the way that you have to think about your content and how it'll be
Totally.
picked up.
Yeah, and it's counterintuitive, I think, where the thought was if we produce more content using machines, um, following the SEO practices, that's going to obviously increase our visibility with more content and our traction. But in reality, what it did is sort of diluted the internet, uh, broadly speaking. And he's not. And I'd be curious. Actually, it's a good opportunity for kind of a poll or put the question out there. Has anybody on the call here had experiences one way or the other, like making? And it's been great to do this experimentation as it's evolving. Like, why not? In some cases, if you're establishing a new brand, just use AI to produce content quickly, stick it out, and see what happens. Right? Has anybody had experience one way or the other taking that strategy, or anybody experienced the aftermath of publishing a lot of generative AI content?
I mean, when I look at this slide, I think these are all the problems that existed before AI.
Right.
And then AI has just made the problems glaringly obvious.
Very well said. Yep. Some things never change, even with technology. In fact, they amplify the problems.
Exactly.
Yeah. In fact, last week, Gartner released a new report, a survey of tech-oriented marketing business companies that focus on driving MQLs, account-based marketing type operations. And not shockingly, 93% of them report using SEO and long-form content as the primary driver for marketing qualified leads, still to this day. And so.
Right. And how much you want to bet the marketing qualified leads have nothing to do with the sales qualified leads still.
Right.
I mean, this is like Groundhog Day.
Yep. Yep.
Well, and Eileen, to your point also, I mean, it's how much is marketing actually having those conversations with sales to get in alignment as to what the SQL is. SQL and MQL can come a lot closer if you're having that ongoing dialogue, and therefore that's actually driving the content that you're producing, and you're in agreement as to, okay, I need this kind of content to turn this MQL into an SQL based on the criteria sales is telling me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say they should be close to the exact same.
Amen. Agreed.
In an ideal case. So that's the 40% that do it right on this slide, right? Again, this is a marketing profs survey, I think about a year and a half ago, where, they meet cross-functionally several times a year. They come up with a strategy, they document the strategy, and we do find a good number of mature companies that are following the best practice there, but it's 60% of the time that's not the case, and it's hard.
Can I ask a question? What's the role of social media using different channels to drive traffic instead of search?
That's a great question. So on that survey that I referenced, it was so the top four, I'm going off of memory here. If you all have Gartner, you can pull it up. I think it was published last year, but the top four channels again, this is for tech-oriented businesses that are doing account-based marketing. The number 1, 2, 3, 4, I think the first 5 actually were long-form content, SEO, sales guides, thought leadership pieces, white papers, gated content, and in terms of the effectiveness. And then the fifth channel was well-orchestrated paid campaigns, ads that accompany the thought leadership pieces, and then the two that kind of came after that were email and social outbound campaigns. And again, this is a survey result for companies that are focused on account-based marketing, driving MQLs. So I just thought it was interesting that there's still such a focus on long-form content, and particularly SEO content, even though I would imagine management teams read these reports, boards look at this and say, hey, we should cut our SEO spending because because isn't everybody on ChatGPT instead of Google SERPs, right? So it's counterintuitive in our experience. And the reason is a lot of companies have built up a content debt, right? There's so much you've published. Some of it may be outdated, unknown, trivial. And what we have to remember in the age of AI, where we're moving to all of us having our own agents that are going out and addressing the web on our behalf, at some point in the future, is those are all trained on the same search results, public listing, web indexes, basically Google being the best, the same way that all the other tools have been. And so those AI agents are going to be assessing your brand and your offering based on what you've published and able to comprehend it all. So it's really important to actually double down on curation now. Gene, got a question there or a comment?
Yeah, you bring up inadvertently bring up an excellent point, which is, let's see if I can remember what it was. There's been in the last 15 years or so, there's been a focus on data targeting and now AI to try to make it even better. But yet there's studies that show that better creative is going to be 4 times more effective than the best data targeting. And so I guess my question is, how can we use AI to make better creative versus just going down the same rabbit hole all over again, with AI just being another use of data?
Particularly with looking at unstructured text, looking at textual content, and then trying to ride out the 15 years of SEO, technical SEO tactics that have been hammered out. There's a remarkable difference, of course, between AI that is keyword oriented, where you take keywords from one of the SEO tools and process them using AI, versus deep learning, which is vector math, looking at the relationship of words. And there's just a big difference. And the AI, in terms of search, has wholesale shifted over to the deep learning model. Meanwhile, the keyword focused methodologies aren't serving to the same level. But even with all that, maybe losing its efficacy of just focusing on the technical side of SEO. I think that what matters is really understanding your audience, like what topics they care about, what are their questions, and using those insights to drive creative processes, to drive branding exercises on a foundation of understanding, anticipating what the interests are of your audience. And I think that's of course, that's my biased view here. That's how we're using.
Yeah, no, that's the point I was trying to get to, which is, like, in data, everybody ended up having the same data sets for the most part when buying through exchanges. So there was no advantage there. And what happens when we all have the same exact AI models, it just becomes the same playing field all over again. There's no true advantage unless you can use it in a way that other people haven't thought of yet.
Yep.
Which I guess is your point.
That's a good segue into another commercial slide here. But our approach has been,
Peter, one thing you mentioned, double down on curation. Can you just get a little deeper what you mean by that? Is that your own content curation? What type of curation?
Yeah, knowing what's published out there and has been, and so knowing what needs to be rewritten, redone, updated, merged, deleted. And then also, of course, moving forward, what are the new topics that are fresh? What are the gaps? Like doubling down on gap analysis, competitive marketplace analysis, to anticipate what are the questions of the audience and how best do we tell the story using those insights from a brief, data-driven briefs driving creative process.
Hey, Peter, question though. Isn't like a component of that AI is actually a tool to help you do that analysis? It's on the research side more than on the content creation side.
Yeah, I mean that's our pitch in a nutshell. Well, everybody's focused on AI to generate more stuff. We've been focused on AI for what AI is actually really good at, which is analysis. So empowering, coming alongside your team as an agent, if you will, pointing out things, anomalies that it's finding, ways to improve your content. The way we do that in our process here is we pull out a section of the web that's relevant to your business in a process that's fully automated. We can build these models now in a matter of a couple of hours. They're deep learning models with a minimum of 200,000 documents in them. And it becomes useful for data-driven briefing. So knowing what your audience is interested in. And you can't do this with big, large language models. Because of hallucinations and all that, even with GPTs and so forth. And of course, as you said before, SEO analytics they're just too limited. It's not the same level of depth of analysis using deep learning. But there's this trend towards vertical AI models and compound AI systems that's emerging, where it's helping enterprises shift from kind of playful use of AI. A lot of consumers, obviously, a typical San Francisco launch model, right? Get all the consumers hooked on it, and then the enterprise sector can't help but deal with it. But anyway, the vertical models are what help you shift to something that's actually useful to accelerate Gen AI usage. So, and it really comes down to understanding not just what the right writing is in a technical or the right creative is, but also the right topics. And that's our focus, is more on the topic side. And I, that's our point of view. And but then not just automating it, with of course there's this debate between what's good for autopilots and what's good for copilot use cases. And there's a debate out there about how soon the models will be good enough that you can autopilot longer form content, but that's kind of less relevant. It's more a question of how do you get the right focus for the team on the right topics, the right content plan, and so you drive value, so that you drive growth from the content you're publishing. So this is our framework, the kind of the way we've looked at it. So again, a great team is going to be producing good copy and good creative, but you still have to address the question of what topics are relevant to the audience to drive growth.
And do you see a difference also in content that's, I mean, this is a debate also. Yeah, Aileen, I think your first comment just really struck a nerve today, and it's so spot on. But look, I've been working with SEO firms since 2004. It's really literally been 20 years. Wild. That I joined iCrossing, and so it's is there or should there be a distinction between what's written for humans and what's written for crawlers? And now that the crawlers also include these AI enhanced versions.
Yeah. So is there, of course, taxonomies matter and markups and everything else that is the history of our industry still matter, right? They help Google and others create the web index. So those technical boxes need to be checked off just to even be on the shelf. And then
yeah. But I was I was the guy because I was coming into the whole industry as a writer, and so I'm no, how dare you, SEO expert, tell me that I need to include this keyword 19 times in this 400 word page? No, I don't care what it's gonna rank, right? This has to be consumed by a human ultimately, and they're gonna think we're insane.
Yeah. Yeah, so actually that is the direction that Google has been heading, right? For useful content, that it needs to be written for humans. And some of the old sort of outdated tactics of keyword stuffing and so forth just have lost their usefulness. But I think that there's a happy medium where you're using AI to structure the overall plan for what you're covering, and not so you don't veer off course. In other words, to encapsulate your strategy and make sure that that intelligence is conveyed to the creative teams. But then the execution of it, I think you can still have and should have, you know, human directed, written for humans by humans within those parameters. That, you know, so I think it's less about, do you cover all the keywords, although that's an element of it, and more about, is it useful? Is it thought leader content? Is it answering the questions of that your target audience has?
Peter, question for you. How do you feel about, like, once you've got the topics identified from your research and whatnot, capturing the internal experts information in a video, whatever, that you're also then dropping into a custom GPT that you've created to, you know, become the beginning of that store of knowledge, probably stuffed with all the other, you know, documents that you've got internally to help feed that, and allow it to then distill the interview, the conversation, to get to at least a first draft, or to begin working through. And then, you know, we as content creators are taking on more of a role as the editor and kind of human fires of whatever comes out of the ChatGPT.
Yeah, I think that's a lot. That's a lot of what we're hearing and seeing with you know, organizations and teams that have been running this out for the last 18 months or 2 years, coming on 2 years now. Is definitely a combo in a best practice. There is still the question of, you know, what is the right basis for the strategy? And I think there was a discussion of this earlier on in this call around alignment between sales and marketing and product and different constituents in the organization that really embody that understanding, and are all of their points of view reflected. And it's interesting, you know, we've had different points of view, and therefore we've kind of experimented in different directions depending on, because these are all custom models we build, right? These are market specific, company specific models. They're not generic. And so in some cases we've had marketing teams say, don't use our internal data because we actually don't trust what our product team has been publishing. We actually want to see market data.
Okay.
And let's start as the start of our training process. So we have the understanding of the target audience. What are they actually asking for?
And when you say models, I'm just to be clear, is that like creating your own GPT?
No. So we actually build real custom models, vertical AI models on a process at scale. So now, actually, this is by way of explanation. This is what we do behind the scenes. So we build a custom model based on your vertical market or objectives of a project. I mean, it could be an event, it could be a campaign, or it could be a business unit. And then that becomes the input parameters for prompt engineering, like everybody else does, using your LLM of choice, which can include, of course, the GPT, to instruct, you know, domain expertise if it's missing in the LLM. It's the typical use case. But it really is starting with knowing what the input parameters should be to drive a generative process, so that your outputs are better content. They're matching the audience interests better. In terms of the brand tone and voice and how soon an LLM plus some custom training can actually be knowledgeable, it's going to take a while. I've talked to a lot of different people, as I'm sure you all have, and you know, I get all different opinions on it. I had a conversation a couple weeks ago with a lead engineer at Amazon who was helping them launch their LLM capabilities, and he said it'll be at least 2 years before there's enough knowledge in these models to actually reflect expertise for long form marketing content. Because in 2 years we have a whole new level of AI modeling capability that's hardware driven primarily, actually, not just software. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question. That's just my experience so far and with it.
No, it does. I'm just starting to get into model building myself, so that's
Nice.
early stages.
Yeah. Jay-Z, looks like you had your hand raised there.
Thanks, Peter. I came in a little late. Did you cover like the cheat sheet for getting indexed into ChatGPT search, or
Ooh.
is there one like organic?
Wish I had
paid?
one. Does anybody else have it? What we're seeing basically is these models are not only, updated periodically using the same web index we all look at, Google and other open sources or negotiated deals now, for the training, but also as they're getting better and better at real-time results, they're just going out to the same web index that everybody else is. So the bottom line is, if your company is in the top 10% of results, chances are, you're going to be referenced in the conversational search. And if you're not, chances are you won't. So you may have missed the part where we were talking about how some things never change. Actually, SEO is still relevant. Relevance is more relevant in the AI age. Just have to do the work, That's been our experience. But if anybody else has a different answer, that's why I said I've come with more questions than answers to this call.
I mean, I've heard of like agencies who can get you ranked higher, right, in ChatGPT, but I haven't heard of like organic ways. I think you're just saying to rank higher in general, and then you'll show up everywhere. But if anyone else has some, organic ways to do it, we'd love to hear it too.
Anybody else have some insights on that one? Because that's the big question. Where's the 50% going, and how can I be there? And I think the same things hold true: quality content, understanding what topics matter, what are the natural language queries associated with those topics, how well does your content address them? And that obviously drives value across the board, not just in organic and search and so forth, but also in driving sales, because you have, in fact, we've had some customers now use a Reliverse to look at sales guides to make sure that they have guides covering all the different possible topics and questions that the target audience has, as an example. There was one question, I think, a little bit more technical on the different approaches. This might be an interesting one to look at. And this is kind of what we've seen out there in terms of, you can use, of course, the closed open LLMs provided by the big tech vendors. But of course, there are IP issues and quality challenges with that. And then, the industry went down the path of offering fine-tuning options to improve the quality. And then the other option, of course, is building your own models, which many large organizations are undertaking for a variety of reasons. And that kind of leads me to one of my questions for the group here is, to what extent are your companies building AI models for not just marketing, but other, is it something on the radar as your IT actually, released models that you're using for different marketing functions and research functions? Like, I've talked with some CMOs of some pretty well-known brands who now have models where they're producing, they're creating personas faster than they could otherwise. Or there are a lot of different interesting use cases if your company is making that investment into training your own large language model.
I've heard of some of that happening, Peter. I think, but the balance is, how much do you want to create versus how much do you want to build on top of existing tech and infrastructure? Because, one of the things that you've been seeing in the market is that companies who invest too much and try to go too big end up being scooped by someone else, or, there was like, I think we talked about this a while back, like JP Morgan tried to build a financial planner bot, and ChatGPT was just better than it by the time they put it out to market. And so why would anyone use it? So I feel like I'm a consultant, and when I'm working with my clients, I try to find that right balance so you could be nimble. And you can pivot, but you can also have something ownable and that you can bring to market. It's really an interesting balance you've got to strike right now.
That's a really great insight. I mean, and data ownership, of course, is it's the same old thing, right? That's the value, is what kind of data do you have to work with, and what sort of mode is around it. So that's another aspect of it.
I tend to do this very small scale with my clients. The consultancy I do is brand therapy, so I let the brand speak for itself by just having a GPT that's a little fine-tuned just within the regular GPT store. And we only put things in that are out there that the brand is going to want to put out there anyway, which are basically their brand guidelines. So it works by getting their stuff out into the model, as little as that does. But it is just a great way to have a conversation with your brand and get your outside of it. And it works for, solopreneurs. It's not something you necessarily need to be doing with large enterprises, although the large enterprises, they get really, really scared about anything going onto LLM. So they really want to inspect what you're building on top of. So for that, I have to go work with partners that are building things that are quite secure. That's usually the largest gate. Once they start getting some insights, we start to get into some interesting areas. We've been so able to just have recorded conversations that we just put into just whatever it is, 6 months worth of fireflies or something like that. And it can be something as simple as, have we dropped the ball on anything we forgot about? All the way to, where are the hidden frictions on the team dynamic side? And there's always some interesting insights along the way. It's just a matter of how you're using this tool in ways that you just haven't before.
That's interesting.
I'm out in LA too, and the other thing I wanted to mention is that the entertainment brands have some really interesting stuff going on. Without naming any names, I've been sort of chatting with different folks around town who on the marketing side are building systems that read through all of the content and then can source clips for them for cutting promo or putting together social content. So that just saves a whole bunch of AE time, and those are being pretty customized. But it does take time, and that industry is a little bit in an upheaval right now. So, I'll be interested to see how long it takes before those come really to fruition, or just becomes, standard issue at any major entertainment brand.
That's interesting. Yeah, there are so many opportunities for workflow enhancement and acceleration with AI, with well orchestrated AI. That's very interesting.
One of the things that we mostly focus on video, and that's been a really interesting place to play in terms of SEO, because now you can create one piece of content, not necessarily with Gen AI, but just in standard video production process, but then cut it up into hundreds of videos, add captions, add metadata really, really quickly. And so we're seeing a lot of the same sort of oversaturation on the video side as we are on the text side. And again, obviously Google favors YouTube, but if you can figure out how to create enough of the right content on YouTube, you can really help yourself pretty dramatically, and use the AI tools to boost your SEO, especially if you're using YouTube Shorts. I found as a complement to YouTube proper, those two things play really well together. And so we're also, spending a lot of time working with that on the video side. That's cool.
That's interesting that it's catching up with what the saturation has happened on the text side. How about audio podcasts and so forth? Is anybody using AI for, podcast oriented work or promotion?
So there's a Google Illuminate just launched, which takes a PDF and turns it into a podcast.
Mhm.
There's a couple other platforms that are doing that. It's more a matter of creating the different mediums, using one medium and saying, great, now here's all the different ways of cutting that up.
Mhm.
But in terms of actually doing the reverse, I've done it with transcripts for YouTube, and then just try to create a knowledge database off of that. But I think it's one of those things where it doesn't take that long to do, but it just seems like one of those things that's going to be integrated into Google as well in months.
Yeah, I think I was looking at HubSpot's new content hub offering, and they're including being able to put the text script into an audio. I think you pick from like five voice samples right now or something. So it's rapidly evolving across all the content types. Paul, not surprisingly, our roadmap for what we offer is going to be picking up video in the not too distant future and audio as well, but starting with video for the reason that you cited. Like, this is getting to a saturation point, and you need to focus on differentiation there as well.
Oh, please keep us updated on that. I'd love to hear more when you guys are ready.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about what we're building to see if it's heading the right direction. So it's in the labs right now, so to speak. I'm curious whether just in general, like, what AI technologies are the most useful in your businesses right now? What, or maybe a better way to phrase it is like, what aspect of the content marketing function are you seeing the biggest boost to the value, that are AI-based solutions? I'm always picking up new applications, new insights on a call like this.
I just gave a shout out in the chat to actually David. You'd probably be a better promoter of this one since they were an AIMG guest, but Content Captain is very robust on this side.
Cool.
Yeah, and with some of our past guests, I do like work with their tech, like Content Captain. I mean, Meet Augie's a lot of fun on now Augie's Studio on the video front. So been doing more with that. Yeah, I still have Opus as a go-to on on video. Though it actually in a way, some of these tools have led me to spend more with someone on Fiverr who now just to keep doing a lot of the editing and production work. So happy not to have to use all these things myself.
Interesting.
What else are others using on the content front? Curious where.
We also use omniscience.tech, which is a kind of a book creator. And it's one of those things where you got to feed a lot of data into it. But it really makes something quite robust in the other end. So we've made a number of papers and are kind of almost finished with a textbook for the Team Flow Institute off of this. I wish Chris were to talk about that, but David, that's something we can get into at some point when the content's actually done.
And I keep my omniscience books, right next to me here. So
I can make a pitch for what we are working on. So we have a RAG chatbot, and the application I see for content marketers is you take all of your content, becomes your knowledge base, and then you can do two things for marketing. First, when you put it on your website as a support or access to your content, you can understand what type of questions your users ask. So that's one of the intelligence pieces that you were talking about. And number two is based on the questions that you ask, it will then look through your content, generate the right response, plus a link to the source of the content. So what I see here is for sales teams and marketing teams to be able to use all of the content that you create and get to engage on social media and generate traffic to your site. So when I was asking what role does social play, so if people are not using search, this is a way for you to complement and use social media to drive traffic by responding to user questions directly and relevantly using your own content.
So that actually touches on the point where I have probably the most curiosity now, and really seems like the most innovations going on, and that's in personalization. And any insights on where you're seeing personalization, AI for personalization in marketing?
Well, that is, I mean, the content that you write is your point of view, and to use AI. So that's the power that I have seen working with my own tool. It's incredibly powerful for picking out the right answers from your content, right? So you can make everybody in your organization now an expert by finding the right content and sharing the right resources with their prospects.
Yeah, so I'm using some script writing chatbots for filmmaking, like more sophisticated log lines and deeper plots. And so they have these like 20 plot lines, like from dystopian to utopian. And most of America, right, like responds to utopian. But if you think about your target audience, like for me, it's AI builders, like coders and data scientists and product managers like myself. They actually respond to a dystopian arc and message. And so they like to, not me, but they like to know that the story is going to end badly, and they kind of like the drama along the way, and then they want to come in and be the hero. So when I was looking at these script chatbots and like, oh, I wouldn't go for that narrative arc or for that, character or subplot. I'm like, well, that's not for me, but it would be for that. So that's where like a deeper story could go into choose your own adventure, depending on the person you're personalizing to.
Very interesting.
Degens are very dystopian. Jamie, well, I don't even know what that means.
The crypto bros.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Give them the most bloody story.
Yeah, I mean, it's the who's the philosopher Derrida? It's deconstructionists in general. There's always one every generation, and these are these guys right now.
Yeah, Nietzsche that up.
How about back on our main topic? What kind of content in the AI world are we finding is the most valuable and driving the best results? Is there a bias towards certain types of content and certain influence on your decision making for where to be focusing your creative? Or is it still the same mix as pre-AI?
Coding is making a big way in right now. So I'm working on an integration of a WordPress front end with a blockchain back end, and we cut our development costs in half because now they're all focused on design and user, and that's still very much an art that I haven't seen. If anybody has anything on the user flow UX side, like more curious on that, because there's a lot to be done with heat maps and things like that. I think there's a lot of data to get, especially when you're working with WordPress themes or Shopify themes, because there's so much structure behind them that can automatically be applied. I just haven't seen it yet. But when it comes to the coding side, my goodness, have we jumped a lot recently.
That's interesting. Yeah, with the heat maps and user journeys, customer journey information. Dan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think what I've seen just from talking to a lot of marketers over the last year has been the content curation piece you were talking about. That is having the biggest impact, I think, in terms of what content's worth. It's mostly just, there's a lot of brands that have hundreds, potentially thousands of pieces of content, and a lot of it's just not fresh, not timely, maybe not accurate anymore. And so the brands that are investing to actually clean up their content and make sure that all of their content answers questions and is relevant to their topics, to the topics that their clients are looking for, those are the brands I think that are doing the best in AI search, because they don't have junk content still on their website. There's just a lot of companies that have old content that's not fresh and really isn't that helpful to their users.
Mm-hmm.
Any last questions or comments for Peter? And this has been a lot of fun, Peter. Definitely a timely and necessary topic. And as you and your team have updates on what you're finding there, I think it'd be great to hear the latest on that front. Just appreciate just the breadth of questions coming in. So thanks everyone for participating. Again, be sure to check out the upcoming event calendar as we as Jamie got us a little bit down that Web3 path. And then Lou Kerner is one of the more provocative folks out there on that front, and he's of course exploring that intersection of AI. So we'll get the Web3 perspective next week, and quite a few others coming up. We've got a demo day with Hannah Gray coming, a demo day with ERA, Entrepreneurs Roundtable Accelerator coming. So there's a lot ahead, and just look forward to continuing to learn from you all. So yeah, thanks Peter, Dan, Vanessa, and everyone who took part, and then join the Slack, and maybe Kate will share where she does her mug shopping. So
it's my old Lifetime television mug swag.
Nice.
Paul, got a thumbs up from Paul.
Love it. Yeah, I think I saw some questions about demos. We're happy to hop on a short 15-minute call and show you the product. And
I put my email in the chat too for everybody. So if anyone wants to dive deeper, get to know the product a little bit better, I'm currently working on our go-to-market for here and getting out there. So you guys are kind of getting the first little bit of a sneak peek of what we're working on with Relify, and we're really excited. So you'll be seeing a lot more from us, and definitely appreciate all the feedback and questions, and it was a great session today. So thanks.
Yeah, and our message for creative writers is AI can be your friend. So
yeah. Excellent. Well, glad to have some AI friends and some real friends too. So
yeah.
So thanks for that. We'll see you next week, and if anyone is in Atlanta next week, I'll be there in person, moderating an AMA event there, and then but we'll still be continuing the calls. I hear they have Wi-Fi in Georgia, so this will continue as usual. So thanks everyone, and see you next week.
Thank you, David, for hosting. Thanks everybody.